Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us at Fall Off the Walls webinar TV Amplified. We'll be looking into the latest technology in addressable TV, the clever integration of online channels, and how creativity can boost performance. We'll be hearing from the brand, agency, and media view of what's currently working to increase engagement and ROI. So let me introduce myself. I'm Alison Rattery-Clark, Production Director here at Fall Off the Wall. And I'll be your host this morning. So let's get started. Hopefully everyone's joined now. So we've got a great lineup today. So let me run through our speakers. So firstly, we have Cathryn Crowe, Head of Performance at Sky Media. Cathryn will be showing how advertisers can become more outcome focused in their approach and what kinds of technology are enabling this. She'll be sharing how to put some of these techniques into practice, excuse me, and talking us through how Peloton has achieved growth. Then we have our very own Marlon Griffin, our creative director here at Fall Off the Wall. Marlon will be discussing the new rules of direct response. He will provide some guidance on how to make sure your message lands and how through the use of creativity, you can achieve cut through and influence. Followed by Adam Shoefield, director of Smithfield Agency. Adam will be unveiling the new patterns of consumption. Focused around TV and online channels, he will share predictions of what the next 3 to 6 months looks like. He'll give guidance on how brands can integrate TV and other channels to amplify results. Finally, we are welcoming James Henderson, Head of Marketing at Aviva, as we hear from the brand's perspective on how they're becoming more targeted, how they're amplifying their TV efforts through social and much more. There will also be an opportunity to ask any questions you may have. So let's get started with our first guest, Cathryn Crowe, Head of Performance at Sky Media. Cathryn is going to share a little bit about herself. So over to you, Cathryn.
Okay, so good morning everyone. I've worked in the media industry for the past 26 years. 20 of those years were spent at Mediacom, initially as a media planner in the direct department, looking after clients like Direct Line, Lombard, Help the Aged, Plan International and PPP Healthcare across inserts, press, TV, direct mail and radio. After having 2 children, one of which is 18 and has not just taken his A-levels, much to his absolute glory, I returned to Mediacom as head of DRTV, looking after all Group M daytime deals. Then in 2014, I moved to Sky Media as head of performance. Here we work with advertisers that were interested in a more closed loop solution, using data to optimize, target and improve linear campaigns. With over 130 channels with market-leading attribution methods and a team of analysts, we can help drive efficiency and scale, and that's what I'm going to talk a bit more about today. So in the deck, we're going to talk about what we are currently seeing and how performance and targeting is enabling smarter spending. We're going to look at how technology is enabling this, and I'm going to talk through the Peloton case study. So what are we currently seeing? So I've wanted to focus on 4 key areas. Focus on growth, specifically looking at D2C brands, which we're seeing lots of, as you can imagine, in the new to TV space. Subscription services, letterbox launches, as I like to call them, the startup area. US-based clients, so that's working with our cousins NBCU, and pure addressable TV. So lots of different examples. We're going to look at partnership and how we look at non-standard trading agreements and how we get to TVs onto air. Test and learn, so this is all about benchmarking results and how we look at and use our advertisers' own data to test, validate and learn across as many variables as possible. And then obviously onto the smart spending. How can we use these learnings to shape future campaigns and identify longer term roadmaps to maximize the use of our Sky portfolio? So going to growth, to start with growth, I do love my job because I get to see lots of new innovations popping up and helping them bring them to TV and scale. And you'll see lots of brands here, some of which you recognize and some of which you may not. So I've tried to show a cross-section of areas that we work within, and this is important as we start to build data banks by genre and understand how particular markets respond, and of course provide us with benchmarks of success for others coming into the market, which is always very valuable. So to highlight a few, we've got the mortgage and home areas. which we saw an explosion of online, trendy furniture with Swoon and Made.com at affordable prices, and of course the mattress market, which saw unprecedented success. Who knew a mattress in a box could be so successful? Moving on to subscription services, for the likes of razors, washing powder, coffee beans, all being delivered to your door, and of course meals. The opportunities here, as we see it, are absolutely endless. As more and more D2C products launch, we see them getting to the point where they want to scale and they need TV. And Peloton is one of those great case studies, which I'll come on to talk about a bit later. We've also worked with our cousins NBC in America to flip US-based clients to the UK. This is, and the example here is Best Fiends, which is an app product, and they use Sky as an extension of their potential client base. So if they know who their target audience is, and we have 10 million homes, why not extend the campaign here? So app-based advertisers are easier to do that. The other example I wanted to point out here is Argos, which is obviously a very long-standing brand. We can use their data in a different way by cross-matching our customers, their customers, with our Sky homes to look at viewing behaviour. And we can cross-section their customer database by spending value or by sector, and then really retarget accordingly. And the other notable examples here are the likes of McLaren, who we did an addressable campaign with, because obviously the wastage when doing a national TV campaign on McLaren would be huge. So we targeted high value or high earners in the country. And I think they managed to sell one car, which obviously washed the face of the campaign. So all different ways that we've seen growth in the market over the past few years. Moving on to partnership, which I see as the way that we trade with these clients and advertisers. And what we've done at Performance in Sky is that the business have allowed non-standard trading agreements. And they might be something like a rev share model, which is 50% upfront traditionally, and then 50% payment on results, which allows Sky to have some skin in the game. Not all brands have got millions of pounds to spend on an all singing and all dancing brand campaign, and they just want to put their toe in the water to see whether TV really is working for them. Profit share is another model that we've really looked into, most specifically over the COVID time, when what happened was it expedited quite a lot of clients that were thinking of coming onto TV to come onto TV. And we allowed, again, a bit of skin in the game, gave them a campaign, and we worked out pre-agreed metrics on what that cost per acquisition model would look like. Very, very interesting. But by more careful outcome-based targeting, we're reducing the wastage, increasing response and business metrics, and growing budgets. And by measurement and tracking, this all gives credence to the number when we're looking at these kind of part payment schemes. And then sometimes we give a bit of creative assistance. So we will work with creative agencies who are able to give some good discounted rates. So that's really important as well. Coming on to testing, to date, we've worked with Advertiser and TV Square to help us with our attribution models. And at this stage, they're mainly probabilistic. And that means that the web traffic spikes are attributed accordingly to the TV timings. And from this, we can look at data efficiency by week, by day of week, by month, by day part, by creative, and by genre. So this allows us then to optimize the airtime, to upweight the airtime that is efficient and downweight the less efficient airtime. So it's really smart spending, we like to call it. And these are an example of the results might not be working as well, the green airtime that's working well for the clients. Each advertiser has their own benchmark of success and customer journeys, and in some cases we optimize on response, and on some it's further down the funnel, including sales. So it really depends, and we work with the client on what specifically they want to look at. And then we come on to smart spending phase 2. So we've done the test and learn phases. We know what works and what doesn't work, what drives response and drives conversion. And then we might go on to recommend other options within the portfolio. So whilst carrying on the optimized performance at a level, in this male targeted example, we may want to deliver in the football to help drive awareness, for example, in a live, exciting environment. Or the testing might have highlighted in an area, a particular genre or day part that we believe is effective that the advertiser could sponsor. Or we could look at a more highly defined audience within the customer database, maybe high value or hard to reach, and deliver a addressable campaign via AdSmart. So all different ways to smart spends on Sky. And then just moving on to how technology is enabling this and progressing. This is kind of the tech bit. As I said, up until now, it's been probabilistic. Now we're just about to launch a deterministic view. Every day, customers file more and more digital journeys, which allow us to collect data. We've been through GDPR and so can enable data-driven advertising and data-driven measurement. The point is to use our learnings to deploy in-campaign planning. So up until now, as I said, this has been probabilistic. So now we're moving to deterministic, and we're actually going to press this week. So just to explain a little bit more what deterministic is, we'll no longer be assuming a relationship between viewing and response, which is what I explained before. But what we'll now know is for certain that through Adobe and through Sky Box matching, which have got unique IDs that fire, we can match it to a household. So we'll know what households have seen the advertising and which households have then turned up on the web, on the advertiser's web. This closes the loop with a direct match between data sets. And this is very exciting because it's going to allow measurement of mid-funnel, so consideration and intent, which lends some brand equity to our measurement. Links TV exposure to online response, which is in deterministic fashion, which is the first in the UK. Full cross-platform measurement, again, which is the first in the UK, and that's across our AdSmart addressable opportunities, VOD sponsorship, and across different devices, mobile and laptop. It's simple and secure, and it's a process that we've set up. And it can self-serve in real time. So we will in the end have real-time reporting, which will set up a dashboard, and advertisers will be able to go in and see exactly what's happening on their campaign. So I think you'll agree that's a very exciting development going forward. And just to give you a brief idea of what we did with Peloton. Peloton launched in January 2019 with a huge spend on brand and performance. And their challenge going forward was they wanted to drive a higher volume of efficient sales. So as much as they want brand awareness, they need to sell the bikes. So what they needed to do was locate the source of sales and optimize accordingly. So we worked with them just on their performance campaign, and we set up the linear optimization. And we were able to move airtime around according to day-to-day results, which enabled Peloton to see instant response improvements and positive business effects. You won't be surprised to learn that during COVID, they sold out on bikes. We had to come off air because it was just too successful, as everyone was working from home and wanting to keep fit. But what did happen with the performance space was that we were able to optimize all their airtime and really, really focus on laser sharp focus on what airtime was selling bikes for them. Their sales metrics increased by 20%. And I can't see the last bit of the chart because it's got our stuff on it. But, oh no, we're working on the app launch now. So yeah, you'll know that Peloton is launching or has launched the app, which is across all different sorts of at-home yoga and different sorts of activities at home. And that's a different type of product that Peloton are launching. So not only can we work with specific brands, but brands that launch new products. So that's the end of my presentation about data and advertising. I hope that's been useful. And if you've got any further questions, then please contact me on my email address. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. A little bit of a technical difficulty there getting in, but hi. So let's start with, okay, so thanks again. Thanks for everyone for taking the time to tune in. I hope you're all doing very well in these crazy times. I'm Marlon Griffin, Creative Director of Fall Off the Wall. I've been working in the creative industry now for over 20 years, starting my career originally at the BBC as a creative, before then progressing to become a TVC director, where for over 10 years I shot commercials for brands including Coca-Cola, Canon, Orange, before returning back to the agency side. I joined Fall Off the Wall in 2016. Fall Off the Wall is a creative agency with its own in-house production, which for over 12 years has built a reputation in the industry as a direct response expert. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on how direct response is evolving, give a little bit of the science behind engaging with audiences, as well as touch on the importance of TV and digital working together. It's quite a lot for 15 minutes, so I'll get cracking. So to begin with, let's talk about the new rules for direct response, how it's evolving in these times. Firstly, our TV viewing habits have completely changed, as well as the amount of choice we now have on offer. We are no longer a tracked linear viewing audience. Next to this, we have had the rise of digital devices, which have completely revolutionized the way in which we communicate, share, interact with brands, and most importantly for advertisers, shop. So the customer journey has now completely changed. Yet in many cases, direct response adverts haven't. So let's define how these TV adverts are categorized. Firstly, we have the direct response, which are usually referred to as DRTV. These are typically product focused and used to communicate news of a great offer. They inform the viewer that they need to act now, giving a clear call to action, driving them to call a phone number or visit a website. These adverts are very rational in their approach and focused on trading, meaning the creative normally can take a back seat. The strength of these adverts is that they have an immediate impact with uplifts in sales and site visits straight after they are broadcast. Next to this, we have the brand advert. These are very creative, focused on the storytelling. They are emotionally engaging. They are designed to establish connections and build strong long-term relationships with consumers over time. They are not focused on hard selling their products for a quick sell. Historically, advertisers have run big brand ads to engage, whilst also running DRTV adverts at the same time to trade. But in recent times, we're seeing more and more advertisers lean towards creating single adverts that are designed to do both. This has given rise to brand response TV, commonly referred to as BRTV. These are more entertaining and creative, yet still present the benefits of the product. A good example of these are the EE adverts starring Kevin Bacon. But I think it's not so cut and dry and easy to shoebox what is what anymore. It's getting increasingly blurred, more of a melting pot as all the principles are now colliding. It's getting more loose and disruptive and less defined. I see it more like a dial that can be turned up and down from being more trade focused to being more brand focused. Why? I personally think we've had so much choice as to what we want to watch, as well as what we want to purchase, so everything now needs to work just that much bit harder. We have also never been so time poor. So we are far less likely to give our precious time to watch things that do not interest us. So we must now always reward the viewer with something for giving us their attention, like some entertainment or humor. These are powerful commodities. This is why adverts like IKEA's Silence the Critics featuring wrapping ornaments was such a hit, as it had actually transcended itself above being an advert. It actually become entertainment, something that people actually enjoyed watching again and again. DRTV adverts are now also need to entertain if they want people to take notice. The old approach to present a long shopping list of rational product benefits quickly run through over the course of 30 seconds just isn't enough to cut through on its own anymore. They need to engage. I'd like to now show you an advert that captures this melting pot of principles.
I'll call you back. Life moves pretty fast when you're Ryan Reynolds. I don't even have time to open doors anymore. Absolutely not. I'm a busy guy. So I need broadband, which moves as fast as I do. That's why I've got BT Infinity. It now offers speeds of up to 52 megabits per second, the fastest fiber speeds as standard. Who's the girl? She slapped me.
She's not in the script.
We thought she was with you. That's very possible.
BT Infinity. Fast just got faster.
The advert, by all accounts, has the high-end production values and engaging narrative of a brand commercial, but under the bonnet, strong DRTV principles are at work. It tells us that BT Infinity is very fast broadband, that it has speeds up to 52 megabits per second, that it has the fastest fiber speeds as standard. It even features a competitor graphic. Now, these are the messages you'd usually expect to see unpacked within a DRTV advert, but they've been delivered here with narrative and charm. Here's another example of this new approach to DR.
Oh, the Virgin Media sale is now on. Lightning fast broadband for just £27 a month.
Now that gets the seal of approval. Lasers!
Get lightning fast broadband for just £27 a month and check out more great offers from Virgin Media.
The advert opens with a traditional DRTV advert approach as the lead character communicates the new news of the sale. But the advert suddenly shoots from the DRTV side of the dial all the way round to the brand side as it introduces a talking and floating seal with laser eyes. Why? Because it engages the viewer. You smile, but most importantly, you pay attention and keep watching. It elevates it to become entertainment. I think what we are seeing here is an exciting evolution in DR at the moment with this blurring of the traditional TV advertising principles. So how do we get this balance between big creative ideas and hard-working trade?
The sweet spot!
Well, like with all things, it's about getting the recipe just right. We call it the sweet spot. It's well documented that videos that emotionally connect with audiences on a human level are far more likely to engage and drive a response than those that don't. When your content is contained within a compelling story that relates to its audience, it is much more likely to be watched to the end, remembered, and shared. If you emotionally engage with your audience, you will also get a greater response to your call to action, essentially building your brand and selling your product. So why is emotional engagement so important when making a rational decision? Now, here's an example of your average human. In this case, it's my mate Matt. He's your everyday consumer. Now, he's not waiting for your advert. He's time poor like the rest of us. And he's bombarded each day by shed loads of impressions and adverts. So how do you make your message cut through all that noise? Well, let's take a peek at his brain and see what's going on inside. Now, the brain is described as being split into 3 key areas. For the sake of simplicity, I've done just that. Firstly, the red area, which is called the reptilian brain. This is our basic caveman brain, our instinctual brain, and it's responsible for safety, sustenance, sex and procreation. Next is the green area, which is called the neocortex. This is our smart brain, and it's responsible for intellectual tasks such as thought, word, and creation. And finally, we have the yellow area, known as the limbic brain. This is the part of our brain which is responsible for love, emotion, and decision-making. And it's the decision-making aspect which is key here. You see, you can present the reason to the neocortex, the smart bit of the brain. Yes, it's a great deal. The price is good value. But you must also convince the limbic brain, the emotional bit, if you want the person to act. If we take a look at the emotional language we use every day, we can see it's the limbic at work. My heart's just not in it. Something doesn't feel right. I've got a good gut feeling about this. I love my iPhone. So for advertising to reach its full effectiveness, we need to get all of the brain on board. Essentially, too much hard sell, the viewer tunes out and doesn't absorb the message takeout, weakening its effectiveness. But on the flip side, too much narrative and charm, the viewer does engage, but gets too emotionally wrapped up in the story and doesn't get the message takeout either. So again, weakening its effectiveness. So to maximize your advertising and get the best response, you need to light up the whole brain. Your communications need enough charm to emotionally engage, yet also clearly communicate the proposition and showcase the awesomeness of your product or offer. Essentially, if you can light up the whole brain, then it's disco time. And that's the sweet spot. So to summarize, clearly communicate your message so that the consumer understands that your product or offer is fit for purpose, but communicate it in an emotive and engaging way. It's not about one or the other. There is no trade-off. It's both. It's the perfect recipe. Now, there has been one major development in recent times that has completely changed the way we respond to adverts. Just like the way VAR has changed football by introducing an extra screen, so has the mobile phone changed our TV time. Yes, second screening. We are all guilty of it. Apparently 75% of the population are doing it for around 40 minutes a day. But these small screens are not the enemy of your TV advert. Oh no, they are its best buddy. The mobile device is literally a shop you always carry with you. It's the perfect next step from the DRTV advert. The power to purchase is literally at your fingertips at that exact moment in time. So the response window can be seconds after the advert is broadcast while you are still engaged from the TV. This is a very rich territory to capitalize on. So DRTV now must focus more on the customer journey of today. The call to action is not a simple sign-off. It's a trigger, the gun at the start of a race. We need to set the viewer off to move straight online. Once here, they are only a few clicks away from a potential purchase. This should be considered in the creative and why you should never plan a TV campaign separate to the digital. They need to work in tandem. The strong relationship between TV and its influence on the digital journey has often been missed. Here's an interesting statistic from ThinkBox. 69% of website visits are generated by paid media, but a staggering 47% of that 69% are actually generated by paid TV media. The fundamental with TV is it's still one of the hardest to track and attribute sales back to. Yes, you can use a bespoke call to action, but in reality, the consumer will probably Google the product. So they may end up on the website with no clear trackable footprint that attributes the purchase back to the TV. We will of course see a spike in visits to the site soon after the advert is broadcast, but it is not as clearly ownable as a direct click through like you might see from a digital advert. Also, you may react to a digital advert and click through because you recognize the campaign from the TV. Taking nothing away from the power of the digital side of things, but for a long time, all of these responses and successes of the click-throughs have been attributed directly to the digital advertising, not to the offline brand interactions like the TV advert. So it's very clear that TV and digital need to work together for maximum results. So you should always consider how to amplify your campaign by maximizing all of the rich assets you are creating for TV, for use in the digital space, further strengthening, giving consistency and reach. With this mindset, always pressure test the TV assets up front, so you'll be sure they will work in the digital space. Here's an example of a Sky Q advert we created for TV, where the assets were then repurposed to create digital executions.
Get the best TV all in one place with Sky Q. Join Sky TV and get 90 channels including Sky Atlantic. Plus, Ultimate On Demand. So you can enjoy Netflix with massive originals like Stranger Things. Together with awesome Sky box sets like Game of Thrones. Get Sky TV, Netflix and Sky box sets, all for just €40 a month for 12 months. Search Sky TV.
Now, a lot of work goes into creating these TV spots, so once created, it's smart and cost effective to repurpose the assets for online. This is called a pocket TVC. When doing this, for best results, never simply reformat the original TV advert. Digital executions must adhere to the best practices for the channel, as viewing habits change dramatically on mobile devices. So for example, adverts on social platforms should always be shorter. Try to stay between 5 and 15 seconds. People are less likely to hang about on their phones, so you need to be quick before they swipe. Always have your brand logo on screen from the start. So even if they do swipe, you will have achieved brand awareness. And always use on-screen text or graphics to support messaging. When a video is viewed on a phone, you can't guarantee the sound will be on or that they are in a quiet environment. And always remember, this is a different platform, it's not TV. So have fun and play with the format. In this case, we had our Stranger Things vines grow out of the screen and over the Insta comments below. All these little fun tricks can increase the engagement, entertain, and as well as increase the sharing potential. So to finish up, we can see the relationship between TV and online is getting closer, and it will continue to do so. This relationship done right can seriously amplify campaigns for maximum results. TVs are also getting smarter, as well as the ways in which advertisers have now the power to use data to target the right audiences relevant to the product on platforms such as Sky AdSmart. Smart connected TVs can now share data just like the online, allowing us to track, target and refine. Eventually, we'll even be able to swap out messaging whilst in campaign based on the live data informing us of what is proving most potent. As we can see, the loop is starting to close. All of this tech is amazing and it can put the ball in front of the goal, but we should never lose sight that it's the power of the creative that needs to engage to make the consumer actually kick the ball into the net. The TV is still the beating heart of your campaign, offline and online. It may have been a little overlooked in recent times with the explosion of digital, but we are all starting to realise just how powerful this box that has always been in our homes still is. It has grown up and got smarter with us. It is still as relevant today as it has always been, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. Many thanks for your ears this morning. If you have anything else you'd like to discuss further, please reach out to me. I'm Marlon at falloffthewall.com. Cheers.
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Kath. Thank you, Marlon. I'm just trying to get my video to work, excuse me, which has decided it's not going to work. I've been in the industry for 25 plus years. I currently run the Smithfield agency. We are a performance-based media planning and buying agency, and our focus is very much on driving clients' advertising harder, and our mantra is putting the planning back into performance. And what we're trying to do is work with Kath and Marlon to bring performance to all aspects of media planning and buying. And today I'm going to take you very briefly through what's been happening in the TV marketplace. And then I'm going to give you some of the ideas and strategies that we use across our client base to drive their advertising campaigns forward. Thank you, ThinkBox, for these wonderful charts. And although we've been on lockdown and these have been very challenging times, what this has done is driven people back to linear television. What we've seen is massive increases in impressions across the board in all core target markets. I think that's particularly interesting against 1634s and ABC1 adults. This is particularly true of light viewers, which are traditionally hard to get, particularly if you're a large advertiser. You'll be used to building coverage and frequency quickly and then extending your campaign to try and reach light viewers, or by adding in digital channels to try and maximize that reach. Well, these light viewers, because of their locked-in mentality, have been reaching for the TV controller to get their fill of content. The same is true of VOD. Obviously, much more available time in the household, people seeking relevant content and entertainment. What's been particularly interesting for some of my performance clients is access to some of these hard-to-reach audiences using daytime airtime. Obviously, because of the established trading patterns within television, daytime still trades at a disproportionately large discount to what you might call peak advertising, which runs in the evening segment. We've also got increased shared viewing, so reaching a family together or a group audience where you can maximize your coverage and frequency, but also solo viewing, coming back to screens so you can target individuals with specific messaging. So overall, more people, more often, and together. So we are very much a captive audience in all descriptive manners, if you like. So what does that mean for the future? I think it's been very interesting trading through the last 3 months. I think we've brought 5 new advertisers to television in that period. Coming into August, we are starting to see price recovering. Advertisers are coming back to the market. I think we saw obviously a massive decline in April and May whilst people adjusted their business model. And I do very much get a feeling that people are now beginning to come back to market and drive their businesses forward again using broadcast. We're still seeing massive impact inflation. So although people are going back to work, we're certainly not seeing massive drops in impressions during day parts. This is still on the increase, and it actually makes managing performance activity quite difficult because ratings are fluctuating so much. With my trading hat on, there is still value to be had out there. And I think if you're talking to your agency about trading for the next 6 to 12 months, now would be the time to commit to your media partners and try and lock in some value into that plan. I know broadcasters are going to be looking to maximize the amount of business on their books, which will give them confidence moving forward to increase that pricing as more advertisers return to the market. I think on the flip side, it's very interesting looking at the way production has been paused, not just here, but in the States. That's going to give us a very big lack of content moving into the back half of the year. And what we expect to see from that is linear viewing reduce slightly as people double down on Netflix, Disney and Amazon, and they look for content that they haven't seen before. Certainly very interesting times ahead. I'm now going to talk a bit about integration and amplification, and try and live up to some of the great stuff that you've seen from Cathryn, Marlon earlier. And obviously, I'm going to start with measurement, and I know Kath talked about this and Marlon did, but I think it's fair to say that tracking is now baked into what we do. Probabilistic modeling, analyzer, which is the direct effect of a broadcast spot, and I'm going to show you a very brief video on that so you can see the power of TV in real time. And then deterministic, we're part of the alpha study that Kath is working on at the moment, and this is a huge sea change in broadcast and connectivity and getting a true understanding of the power of broadcast. So a lot of this confusion around, was it a spot, was it the click, all of that space in between, and we can get much nearer working out which half of your advertising is working versus which half of your advertising isn't working. But I'm going to show you a very quick example of some traditional DR advertising and how it affects a client's business. What we've got here is an advert in real time and a client's Google Analytics. This is what we would call a hardcore direct response ad. So it's functionally strong, creatively weak, but as you can see, it's very effective in doing the job it's meant to do.
Find out more now at catalogppi.com.
And if you were to carry on watching this video, you would see it affecting that client's business for at least 5 to 7 minutes. What is interesting about this particular example is the client at the time insisted I put it in Love Island, and we moved from a £258 spot to a £50,000 spot. What we managed to do was break the website for 2 days, but we also saw a 28% uplift in all key metrics for 6 days after that ad actually aired. So I think some of these traditional DR rules around always trying to find the biggest audience for the lowest price aren't necessarily true. And the work we're doing is very much about finding the purest audience with the least wastage to deliver the best effect from broadcast marketing. So some of the tricks of the trade and some of the work we're doing, Marlon and I sharing images here. Syncing is been around for a couple of years now, and it's a great way of optimizing your broadcast activity. We can see all linear TV in real time, and every ad that airs has a unique audio footprint, so that we can link this back to PPC, social, digital display campaigns, and we can activate bespoke tactical activity as an ad airs, maximizing that dual screening approach so that as the audience migrate to their second screen, your advertising is there to meet and drive demand through to conversion. Another way of using this strategy, which I particularly like if you're not using broadcast, is to hijack your competitors' advertising. So you can have an ad that's linked to their audio signature, and then all of your digital comms switch on whenever they run a broadcast ad. So you can live off some of their fame and try and steal some of their traffic. It's a really strong technology play and is now viable across a multitude of different digital strategies. Spiking, again, we've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years, where we take a set of clients' social assets and we reconfigure some of them to work in broadcast, very much in the line Marlon's talking about, And what we do is, rather than go for a traditional DR strategy or for a traditional coverage and frequency strategy, we look very much for new, specially choose to watch television, which is primarily focused and attuned to the core target market. And then we only buy maybe 5 or 10 spots. But what we do is we use those 5 or 10 spots to activate and drive that social media strategy. And particularly against that 16-34 segment, we see a huge uplift in engagement and dialogue as soon as the ad airs, and that drives them into that digital funnel so that we can move them along and make sure that campaign maximizes its opportunity for growth across the advertising period. Road blocking, this is a strategy that goes back to my infancy in the industry and was really relevant when there were only 2 or 3 channels. I think what is interesting about doing this type of work today is that the level of audience analysis we have and real-time data really allows us to pin down a segment by time of day, day of week, to exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. We can now effectively run a roadblock, which is showing a single group of people an ad everywhere that they may exist within their media landscape in real time. This is a very powerful way to launch a new strategy and to build effective cover very, very quickly. And using this, we can now do this across all forms of broadcast. So effectively linking radio, outdoor and television to reach an audience in real time. Obviously, this is replicated within a digital environment where we can lock down our social comms, our PPC and our digital display, all linked to the target market. So really maximizing our reach and minimizing our waste using audience analysis and technology delivery. So the only limit to this particular one is scale. I've managed to do it across 133 channels simultaneously and link that through into digital display. But clearly, if you were to use route data and push that out into outdoor, you could really drive some incredible advertising messaging to a very targeted but mass audience at the same time. I'm going to talk a bit about programmatic in broadcast because we use this quite effectively, and when we're working with people like Marlon, it allows us to maximize the creative input as well as the power of broadcast. Our technology is plugged straight into the ad serving departments at the broadcasters, and what we're doing is we're linking response analysis that we're seeing in real time back to a bank of ads we've created for an advertising campaign. So what we'll look to do is we'll talk to a client about producing a 60, a 40, a 30 and a 10. And when we come up with the creative idea in tandem with the agency and the client, we'll look for that creative idea to be delivered in a range of different ways. For example, we might have a couple, we might have a male or a female lead messaging, and then we'll cut all of those iterations up. We'll then load them into our ad server. And then over a period of 2 to 4 weeks, the ad server will start seeing which ads perform best in which channels or which time of day. And then it will automatically take over and serve the best performing ad based on the best time of day and the best channel. A good example of this recently was we had the male ad appearing on Dave all the time, but we had the female ad appearing on Woman. And what we see is very different response and engagement levels based on the type of ad we were using in the type of channel that they were viewing. Now, this is a thematic approach to media planning and buying, but obviously to do it in real time is very difficult. So the technology allows us to maximize our assets and our response in a live broadcast environment without us manually have to go in and do this on a month on, month off timing plan, which you would do with traditional deployment strategies. So bringing real digital optimization into a linear broadcast environment. So all of those things that you love from programmatic into your TV world. So I've really just given you some food for thought there around different approaches to how we can use broadcast. As an agency, we are very senior, so we tend to bring a lot of older ideas reimagined for today's landscape. I'm a firm believer in cross-pollination. So our industry is very good at creating disciplines because it's an efficient way of running media, but actually it's by bringing those different disciplines together and getting them to exchange ideas and thoughts that we really get to maximize performance within media planning. I think the application of technology is key and trying to be at the forefront of new ideas and new thinking within our industry. But I think there's also a level of realism around the cost-benefit analysis associated with applying that technology for a given campaign. But if you think about all of the above, it delivers a much more effective and, most importantly, accountable advertising for clients. And I think from an agency's perspective to the client, just try and be as brave as you can, and the results will speak for themselves. Thank you very much for my very brief tour of performance and broadcast advertising.
Good morning, James. So obviously from today, we've heard lots of interesting information. So on to my first question, how do you ensure you're targeting the right audience when it comes to TV? And then how do you measure the performance from your targeted audience?
Yeah, well, thank you. So just a quick bit of background. I'm head of marketing for Aviva, and therefore very used to overseeing TV campaigns, both from a direct response all the way up to big pure brand building, which we're in the middle of planning right now. So in terms of how do we know we're targeting the right audience? The very first imperative is really defining the campaign objectives. And that could be anything from direct response through brand building, through brand response to the earlier sessions. And once we've done that, we need to really understand media consumption, which, as you've seen, brilliant couple of sessions this morning, they're changing all the time, and the level of sophistication and insight that we can get. I've taken loads of notes from Cathryn's session, which was awesome on the Sky approach. We can then really hone down on who we want to target, and then working our media agency really hard to develop a media plan, covering broadcast and TV video on demand to really maximize the penetration of that target audience. In terms of measurement, we would then look to we have weekly and monthly awareness, consideration and takeout tracking. And where required, we can go deep into ad diagnostics if it's not quite doing what we need it to.
Brilliant. So with your target audience now nailed, what other channels do you use to amplify your TV efforts, and what have been your kind of learnings from this?
Well, we do have, if we're brand building side, we would use out of home, ambient media, that kind of thing. But we're majoring really on social to be the amplifier of a lot of the TV campaigns. Marlon talked about this before. The biggest learning is it can't just be a mini version of an ad, right? It's got to play a complementary role. If you're clever, to the earlier production point, you can have a number of similar edits, but you've got to be mindful that it's got to be shorter. It's got to be more relevant because the targeting is better, especially on Facebook. But the key point is think about removing the reliance on any sonic cues that you would have, because people might not have their sound on. They might not have the right level of connectivity, so keep your video content short. The biggest lesson we've learned, though, really is that when you mix them, when you make one spark off the other, we've seen as a brand circa 30% lift in message reach when we combine TV and Facebook effectively.
Okay, brilliant. And so you touched there on Marlon's presentation about creativity. So what role does creativity play in ensuring TV success?
Yeah, I feel a bit of a fraud following Marlon on this subject, but effectively, what I see is that the creative approach really supporting the objective of the campaign. So if you think about at one end, an emotional campaign for brand building, the objective of building the brand, and at the other end, more of a rational approach, but with emotive triggers for the activation or maybe a product-led message, and therefore letting the agency, the creative agency, loose on what is the right creative to meet those objectives.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I guess for the people listening, they would like to know, how do you strike that balance between brand building and driving performance as well for Aviva?
Yeah, this is a massive area of focus, and it's been a bugbear of mine over a number of years, because more and more, the point was made earlier around TV being overlooked, which is criminal. People are really focused on short term, on the brand activation, the performance marketing, because, you know, rightly, you can measure it. You can measure it now. You can see what the return is here and now. But that is too often at the expense of the long-term brand building campaigns. And, you know, anybody listening that hasn't, you know, please read the works of Binet and Field around the effectiveness of marketing and how brands grow, because what's really clear and proven is that you need to get that balance right. For Aviva particularly, it's around, you know, people know Aviva. People are aware of Aviva on the whole, huge spontaneous awareness. But what we've got to do is invest more in the brand building around why come to Aviva. So we'll be looking to redress that balance over the next couple of years, more towards brand building.
Okay, brilliant. And then, have you seen a change in what works over this period? And do you expect any of this change to endure post-COVID-19?
Yeah, so clearly we've seen an enormous amount of change. In terms of what works, it's difficult to comment because we haven't got a baseline, because we've never done this type of communication before in this environment before. But what I would say is that I've seen three key changes. Change in our approach. So first of all, we treble check everything before it goes out to see if it is in the right tone. You know, if it lands poorly, then you know, that could do a lot of damage. And it's not just about COVID; it's about you know, Black Lives Matter, cultural movements as well. We are very nervous about what we send out right at the minute, and we do more weekly tracking around sentiment. Second change is around customers. We know that they're hypersensitive, and we know that any change in what brands say they're doing and how they're actually acting is going to be seen through immediately. And we think that's one of the key things that will endure. Brands have to act how they say they will. And secondly, it is a functional one, production, right? We need to be alive to the fact that production challenges in terms of how people can produce ads right now is going to be tricky. And what we're mindful of is risk assessments now over production options, especially if there's a second wave further down the track.
Thank you so much, James. And we don't have any questions that have come through. So it was just for me to say a huge thanks to all our speakers and to yourself, James, for spending your time with us today.
Welcome.
Some really interesting insights. We will be sharing a recording of the webinar, and I hope that it got you thinking about your own brands and your TV offering. But from all of us today, just a huge thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again for spending your time with us on TV Amplified. Thank you all.
Thank you.